the pyramid of Amphion in Thebes of Greece that overturns conventional history. Amphion is the lost piece of history that comes to light. This is about an hour's ride north by car, north of Athens. It's also the first Thebes, the original Thebes, which the Thebans then built in Egypt and called it Thebes. And it's a step pyramid. The first step has a dimension. The second step is half the height. The third step is half the height of the second. And the fourth little step is half the height of the third step. Now, we went there because we had taken some people to go on a pilgrimage to see the tomb of Saint Luke the Evangelist. He was a doctor, an ancient Greek, who was the doctor of the Apostle St. Paul, and he came from Thebes. And we went to see his tomb there. And we also went to get, the priest I was with went to get something from a pharmacy there. So we went around this hill that has 4 steps like this. And I was looking at it as we were going slowly around. And I said, that's a pyramid. He said, no, it's a hill. I said, no, it's a pyramid. Look at it. The steps are no way geological. This has to be created. And he said, well, there's no pyramids here. Well, of course, he didn't know because he wasn't Greek. But I knew that there are a lot of pyramids in Greece that are today covered looking like hills, like this thing here. I was trying to see it on Google Earth, but Google Earth has the whole of Thebes of Greece under snow, and it's not easy to see where this thing is. But let's go back to the article. The Pyramid of Amphion in Thebes is perhaps the most disruptive modern archaeological discovery. With its discovery, a forgotten world is revealed, a civilization that puts the theory of the pyramids on a new foundation, thus leading the Greeks to claim another important first. How wonderful world of Greek history once again. The wonderful world of Greek history confirms its greatness. The literature on pyramids and pyramid-like buildings in the Greek area has been expanding in recent years, along with the monuments that are being discovered or reinvestigated historically, morphologically, and functionally. In particular, the pyramid-shaped monuments of the Argolis, which we'll talk about below, were considered prectoria, buildings that were where they would light a fire to transmit a message for somewhere else far away. Just like the Indians used to send smoke signals or fires, right? So far away, or barracks, and however, their time determination was in principle based on exogenous histories, etc., criteria. Hence the arbitrary premise that pyramids and pyramid-like buildings in the Greek area were unthinkable before Alexander the Great's campaign in Egypt, the bed of pyramidal constructions. The discovery of the tomb of the 2 heroes of Greek mythology. The morphological and chronological issues of the pyramids of the Greek area were put on a new basis with the research of the Amphion monument site in Thebes of Viotia. Specifically, the excavation showed that the hill on which, according to legend, the Theban Dioscuri, Zethos, and Amphion were buried had been transformed into a stepped pyramid monument. For the topography and the naming of this hill, there were reliable records of ancient tradition. The tragic poets of Athens of the 5th and 4th centuries BC, who drew themes for their dramaturgy from the so-called Theban cycle, hence from the tragic fates of the house of Lavvakids, necessarily recorded points of the natural and monumental environment of Thebes, in the context of which the action of the heroes of their tragedies developed. Let's remember that Hercules was also born in Thebes, and when he was a babe, supposedly snakes came up to his crib, but with his strength he choked both of them and killed them. So Hercules, yes, was born in this same city of Thebes. First, Aeschylus, in his dramatic masterpiece 7 on Thebes, left us a brilliant description and reference to the natural landmarks of the Theban Acropolis, the Cadmea, but also to the gates of its wall. In front of these walls, the 7 captains of the Peloponnesian campaign against Thebes had lined up in order to install the expelled Polynices on the throne of Lathdakids. The huge significance of the discovery of this great Greek pyramid. Our era is undeniably the era of Middle Eastern centric theories measure and impose their effects and parameters in many areas of both visible and invisible everyday life. But in today's infamous Thebes, exactly where ancient tradition and all written testimonies placed it, a discovery of world historical importance was made about 30 years ago by the archaeologist Theodoros Spiropoulos, which nevertheless remains unknown and sidelined, although it can change everything, the historical and not only facts to date. The ancient tomb of Dioscuri, Zethos, and Amphion, who according to all sources were buried together, was found. But why is this discovery so important? Not only because the visitor can now touch the very monument where the two heroes of Greek mythology were buried, which means that these heroes really lived, and real events took place with them, which some of us are accustomed to consider as happenings of a foggy time, in which we place persons in situations that are essentially not existent or at most very symbolic. But beyond this shocking confirmation, there is something else even more shocking. The mound in which the tomb of the heroes was found is the last part, that it's the top of a huge step pyramid, which is the entire current hill of Amphios, and this hill is crisscrossed by endless and unexplored underground arcades 5 meters high, dug into the rock. That's 15 feet high. Perhaps, however, the most shocking thing is that this great Greek pyramid can be safely dated to around 2700 BC, which means that it's clearly older than the Great Pyramid of Cheops or Khufu, but also the oldest Egyptian pyramid, that of Djoser. In short, the pyramid shape is a Greek invention, and from here it was exported to Egypt, but also to the rest of the world. Of course, the matter has even greater ramifications, since this very pyramid shape presupposes and means pre-existing religions, political, social, and other similar structures. So we understand how many things are overturned by the amazing discovery of Spiropoulos. Greek mythology is now, with evidence and findings, becoming Greek history, and in fact a millennium and a half older than it wants to be. Some people eagerly present it. One smiles now when he thinks of the way another prominent pyramidal Greek structure is officially dated, the well-known pyramid of Hellinikon in the Peloponnese. It must, he says, have been built after the time of Alexander the Great, since then only the Greeks came into contact with Egypt to copy the fire mid-shape, and this is called science. At the same time, however, we also understand why the world historic archaeological revelation of the amphitheater remains completely hushed up and left to indifference and ignorance, at the same time that the theories of M. Bernal, for example, are exaggerated, to the point that today the place that it can turn world history upside down to be almost a garbage dump. Here, of course, we're not going to develop the thorny problem of monumental Theban topography regarding the antiquity of the wall of Cadmea and its 7 gates, to which the 7 leaders of the Perionymus campaign, which is considered to have taken place before the Trojan War. Okay, before the Trojan War. The pyramid of Amphion that overturns conventional history. Whether Aeschylus is referring to the original gates of the Cyclopean wall of the Acropolis or the gates of the expanded city wall of historic times is a question that goes beyond the scope of the present topic. After all, this is an issue that has been exhaustively developed in studies by eminent researchers of Theban monumental topography, such as Fabricius, Wilamowitz, and especially Antonios Keramopoulos, the latter in the monumental collection of Thebaikias in Archaeological Bulletin 3 of 1917, developed all the relevant issues without, I'm afraid, always ending up in safe identifications. But with regard to the topographical position of Amphion in Thebes, all scholars and researchers of Thebes agree that it is the hill located to the north of Cadmea, from which it is separated by a neck that was initially deeper, shallower today due to sedimentation, since in this place there is no other natural landmark that corresponds to the references of the tragic. In particular, Aeschylus writes, 7 on Thebes, 526. On the 5th day, I say, 5 northern gates were ordered, mounds according to this Diogenes Amphion. The northern gates of Aeschylus cannot be placed anywhere else, except at the northern end of the oval Cadmea, which in fact narrows at the end. However, beyond these gates, there is a natural and monumental landmark, the hill and tomb of Diogenes Amphion, which bears the name Amphion. All around this landmark stretches a fertile plain of Thebes, the Aeonian field. Aeschylus also recorded the hill and the burial monument of the Theban Dioscurs as a meteor, that is a high landmark, and in the tragedy Iketis 662, when he writes, chariots of 4 vehicles entered modest monuments Amphion. With this specific verse, he designates the hill, and on top of it the tomb of Zethos, which Parthenopaeus bypassed to advance to the gates of Cadmea, the so-called Borean or Ogygian gates, which in the works of all the tragedians are associated with the hill of Amphios. So he investigated this natural hill at the beginning of the 20th century. Andonis Keramopoulos, thus confirming the testimony of Pausanias, and Amphion also lives in the common ground of the earth and is great. So in this way, the traveler of the 2nd century AD, on one hand, he saved the tradition of the Theban Dioscuri were buried in a common grave. On the other hand, he described as one eyewitness the tomb of the common grave as Gis, ou Mega. However, despite the fact that Geramopoulos confirms with his research the small height of the tomb at the top of the hill, about 9 meters, 3 meters in relation to the hill, which is about 35 meters high, he did not manage to locate the common grave of the Dioscuri, which we uncovered with our systematic research during the period 1970 to 1973. Thus, the mythological tradition of an important and sacred monument of the prehistoric civilization of Greece proved to be completely accurate. The pyramid of Amphion that overturns conventional history. But our research did not stop there. The tomb that covered the common grave of Zethos and Amphions proved to be not simple soil, but a construction in the shape of a round cone with bricks in the northern part, which had been the large, surely common, box-shaped tomb of 2 heroes, the monumental burial facility with a huge covering slab and a double door on its northern narrow side. Disturbing skeletal remains and 33 millimeter high golden papyrus ornaments were found in the captured grave, with a double counter spiral at the base of the anthers and a stem terminating in the suspended loop. Certainly there were many more members, 1 or probably 2 necklaces, which highlighted the royal and priestly offices of the 2 princes. Something similar, they are also the flowers of the lily papyrus, which the prince of Achaea, Knossos, also wears in the famous fresco, the prince with the lilies, who stirs, according to general acceptance, his priestly office. The gold jewelry, the most beautiful in the Greek area, and the findings of the tomb date the construction of the tomb and the tomb that covers it during the Proto-Hellenic times, period 2700 to 2400 BC. Despite the objects and the effort by many scholars to lower the chronology of both the gold jewelry and the tomb to the Middle Hellenic period of 2000 to 1700 BC, our dating is today generally accepted and is a starting point for dating and the spatial movement of the shape of the mound in the Greek, but also in the European area. In short, the hegemonic epitaph tomb of the amphitheater is not a sample and development of the well-known burial tomb of the Kurgan type found in Central Europe, the Eurasian zone, and the southern Balkans in Albania. The Kurgan mounds are burial monuments of multiple burials, and their offerings differ from those of the amphitheater and other mounds in the Greek area, in which burial, pithos, bronze objects, and ceramics are typically Greek Mediterranean and not European. This negates the attempt to connect the Greek mounds with the Kurgan mound bearers and the supposed Indo-European, who then supposedly for the first time, 2200 to 2000 BC, entered Greek territory. However, neither the archaeological nor the logical linguistic picture of the Greek space supports such theories, as we'll see below. The tomb is a native epitaph shape and sign, which evolved from the small mounds of the Neolithic times, and takes on monumental dimensions and a monumental form from the Middle Bronze Age, corresponding to the office of the dead ruler. This last one is immortalized in the memory of the nation with the epitaphic tomb-shaped exerma, which Homer characterized as telogis sima, compatible with the nature of the tomb as a reminder of the glory of the dead ruler. The legendary tomb, but our research did not stop here. The tomb on the top of the hill was located at the end part of the hill, which had a conical shape, a cone with two flat surfaces, top and bottom, and a height of about 4 meters from one surface to the other. That's 12 feet. At the base of this part of the hill, a perimeter zone, peridromos was clearly discernible, which Keramopolis tried to interpret. Of course, he himself, rightly of course, considered that it was artificial and not natural. He assumed, therefore, that this peridromos was a processional route of rituals. Such rites were hinted at by the oracles of Basidus, a seer from archaic Arcadia, and according to this oracle, the Thebans had to guard the funerary monument from the inhabitants of Tithorea, who, when the sun was in the constellation of Taurus in May, attempted to steal soil from the Amphion to transfer it to their homeland. This soil was carried to the tomb of the seal, who was the husband of Antiope, mother of the Laocoon of Thebes. Pausanias used the verb ipheriste to describe the action of the inhabitants of Tithorea. Keramopolis was concerned about the possible factual meaning of the term and wondered if it referred to the internal configuration of the hill. Nevertheless, he made the mistake of characterizing as Byzantine aqueducts some of the tunnels on the hill, which were visible when the Athens-Lamia carriage road passed through there. Finally, we proved that with our research, that Pausanias' hypareste rendered one of the two parameters of the amphitheater pyramid, hence its inner tunnels. The other parameter is the gradual formation of the hill itself, with such carving so as to take the three-level shape, on the top of which was built the tomb and the joint tomb of Zethos and Amphionos, which also gave its name to the hill, Amphion. The leaders of the amphitheater stood up, choosing their weapons, Arrian 1867 and Plutarch on the demon Iocrates, 4 and the Archean called Theokriton, and to the Lysanoridas, he himself sings for a long time of the journey of the small road under Amphion. The discovery of the pyramidal shape of the hill began with the finding that a few meters lower in the peridrome, at the base of the upper cone of the hill, there was a second similar path, which had been covered by thick embankments, trees and shrubs, which made that invisible. The uncovering of this corridor also revealed another truncated cone, while during our excavation, the beginning of the third one was also seen. The hill cones were measured as follows, apparent heights. The mound, 2.2 meters, the first cone, 4.4 meters, the second cone, 8.8 meters, the third cone, 17.6. So you can see that each one is the bigger ones are double of the one above it. Okay, so 17.6, half of that is 8.8, half of 8.8 is 4.4, half of 4.4 is 2.2. Now the route through the amazing tunnels of the hill, the Pyramid of Amphion, that overturns conventional history. The hill of Amphion has a sandstone texture and is relatively easy to carve, but its surface is weathered. However, it's not true of its interior, where the tunnels are excellently preserved to a depth of more than 20 meters, that's 60 feet. The main access to the interior of the hill is through a vertical shaft about 1 meter in diameter, which was exposed in the perimeter of the brick mound, north as of the great tomb on the top of the hill. The second well on the western slope, slightly slanted, served to ventilate and light the interior, as is also the case in underground Egyptian monuments. The tunnels inside the amphitheater are a painstaking, elaborate work. From the central well, we are led to the east to a trefoil-shaped notch in the rock, and to the west to a carved staircase which lowers the level of the tunnels. These tunnels run through the entire interior of the hill in straight sections, which with right angles form a meandering grid throughout the interior of the hill. The height of the tunnel is 5 meters, about 15 feet. The width is 1.8 meters, while the roof is arched. At irregular intervals on both sides, niches 2.5 meters high have been opened in the rock, arched above, the greater height of which has been closed by pieces of the rock. Our journey inside the hill was an exciting transport into the world of legend. The 20-meter depth of the vertical shaft brought us every day with a crude lifting mechanism to the bowels of Amphion and its elaborate tunnels, which we traversed with caution and awe, tied with ropes so as not to get lost in its unexplored labyrinths. Scientific research was fueled by human curiosity, admiration for the amazing constructions, and our thrill, which was as deep as the depth of the shafts and tunnels that brought us into the mysterious world of the dead, trying to discover their eternal abodes. But unfortunately, they did not let us. We didn't even have time to go through all the underground tunnels, draw them, and photograph them. However, our experience, although short, is always shocking and magical. The interior of the amphitheater is the most amazing underground monument in Greece that must be explored and given to the public. And this is very easy for the side exits of this tunnel, which are located next to today's roads. The legendary and magical have taken their monumental status inside the amphitheater, and the uncovering of its underground tombs is the vindication of our tradition and our own, unfortunately, fruitless efforts and research. Other pyramids of the Greek space. For the rest of pyramids in Greece, evidence is incomplete, and the remarkable book of author Christos Lazos, Pyramids in Greece, published by Erlos, 7 pyramids are recorded. 1, the Pyramid of Hellinikon. 2, the Ligurian Pyramid. 3, the Pyramid of Dalamanara in Argolis, that's near Sparta. 4, the Pyramid of Cambia in Neopytheros in Argolis, that's near the amphitheater of Epidaurus. 5, the Pyramid of Sicyon. 6, the Pyramid of Neapolis in Laconia, that's near Sparta. 7, the Pyramid of Amphios in Thebes, that we're talking about right here. The author briefly describes the dire state of most of these monuments in this article. We have Pyramids in Greece and Focus Magazine, Volume 35, January 2003, page 98. The Hellinikon Pyramid is the best preserved with a masonry style of about 9 buildings, 6 to 7 meters. Leveled is one in Liguria, from which few buildings are preserved, especially towards the downhill side. The Pyramid of Cambia survives in very few ruins. Now, the pyramids of Dalamanara, Sikiona, and the one in Villagafia in Sparta were completely destroyed, with the difference that from the latter one only the moat that surrounded it survives. Finally, the step pyramids Amphios in Thebes has undergone so many interventions and destructions that it's difficult to distinguish its form. For the latter case, the author is apparently referring to the installation of the system of scouts on the pyramid with the permission of the state, although the tomb of the Theban Dioscuri and the step configuration of the hill had already been discovered. Moreover, the hill, meanwhile, became a grove and planted with pines whose roots caused damage to the surface of the monument. Among the pines, the excavator cleared a narrow zone to discover the stepped formation of the hill into the pyramidal monument. From the top to bottom, tiers 1, 2, 3, and 2 intermediate diazones can be seen, while at the top of the hill rises the invisible in the photo mound with the common grave of Zethos and Amphion. So far, only the pyramid Amphion has stepped form, while the rest seem to belong to the type of regular four-sided pyramid with smooth surfaces and construction of buildings more carefully or rudimentary carved. The pyramid of Ellinikos has among its large buildings also smaller stones, a technique known as the prehistoric buildings of Greece, not only in the Cyclopean walls but also in more ancient buildings and constructions such as the Proto-Hellenic mounds of Kopaida. This is a very long article, but let's go to the end. This is the only way to demonstrate their potential timelessness, the potential survival of the shape, and whatever its original destination was, or the inclusion of all in a cultural, by extension, chronological horizon, which for us is the most likely version. We consider such a horizon early and middle Bronze Age, the period of the Minoan civilization of Greece, the millennium of the flourishing of the Minoan civilization of Greece beyond 2700 to 1700 BC. This date, the civilization has for us invented and promoted the pyramid shape not only in Greece but also in the wider area. But what is the purpose and what is the starting point and the operation of these buildings? The amphitheatre was clearly a funeral monument. On its top was found the tomb of the rulers, the Dioscorus of Thebes, Zethos, and Amphion. This tomb was probably also a center of worship for the heroes, the founders of the city of Thebes. In the unfortunately unexplored interior of the hill, other tombs are reliably presumed. Pausanias' reference to attempt to dig up tombs inside the hill and the burial precinct of the hill monument, as well as the fires of the Nobids despite the hill, allude to it. So the hill and its pyramid functioned as burial places not only for the Dioscuri rulers of Thebes, but also for their families. Hence they functioned as a polyandrion and at the same time as a place of hero worship until late antiquity. From this point of view, the pyramidal shape was not only utilitarian, that prioritized the graves according to the office of the dead, but also expressed the sanctity of the eternal residence of the rulers of the heroes. And I've translated this for you from a Greek article. It's still very long. And I just wanted you to know that these are very, very old pyramids, older than the pyramid of Giza. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.